Beautiful Sunday morning. Definitely is. If y'all don't mind, if you'll hang with me for a little bit, I might learn you something. I'm open to. I want to do something called a testimonial. Now, don't freak out. Chill out. I ain't gonna be thumping a Bible at you. Now I want to tell you my testimony, and you might find it rather interesting, because this old boy been around the block once or twice in some very dark and mysterious places. Start off as I grew up in our household, we were Southern Baptist mostly. And typical Southern Baptist of the day. I went to Sunday school until I was 12, from about the age of 8 to the age of 12. And except for Christmas and Easter, Thanksgiving, those are the 3 days you do your prayer, My dad had his Bible. Grew up a Boy Scout. My dad was a scoutmaster. And he had his New Testament they carried with him. And when we'd go camping on Sundays, we'd probably do a little bit of a sermon. That's about it. But than that was about the extent of it. Pretty much Christianity in my home and in my area, because I grew up, we had a lot of Catholics that lived in our area, because we weren't too far from St. Luke's Catholic Church and school, and we had a lot of Baptists, and we had a lot of different folks, And so anyways, fast forward, did finish up with high school and all that. And I meet my first wife. Okay. And she actually winds up being pretty much my first real full-time girlfriend. Get to have that, that fun stuff, And well, one thing led to another, and we kind of hooked up and had a backyard wedding with the Justice of the Peace. And, well, she was a professed Wiccan. Now, this is back in the mid-'80s when all this stuff was going on. And except for, and to be all honest with you, I was Southern Baptist in name only, like most of my generation, So anyway, so one thing leads to another, and I wound up becoming pagan as well. And hey, this is pretty good. I can get away with a lot of stuff. If it harm none, do it thou will. If it don't hurt nobody, right? Well, it did. Let's jump forward a little bit. Actually, not that long, only a year and a half. That wife had been sleeping with everybody and their brother, but it was okay because it wasn't harming anybody. It wasn't breaking the Wiccan reed. And so that marriage fell apart, that one. And I didn't pick up on that one yet. I figured, well, that's just nothing more than a license to go get laid. Sorry for language. That's life. Sometimes life is crude and rough. So, and that's pretty much what I set out to start doing. And I wound up becoming a third grade priest of the Gardnerian tradition. I was one of the founding knights of the Order of the Green Man. I founded Southern fundamentalist paganism, because I kept noticing that a lot of things just weren't right yet, Meanwhile, basically I spent about 30 years, a little over 30 years, in the pagan community, and amongst Druids and Norse. They like to call themselves heathens, and numerous different pagan traditions. I met Satanists. I debated ministers on the radio, Mike in my face, Mike in his face, cross table from each other, spitting insults. And I really thought I had it going on. Well, 3 years after I get rid of the first wife who was deciding that she was a village bicycle, And I met the love of my life. I met Miss Jill. And Miss Jill was an agnostic. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with agnostics are very, very simple to describe. Because if you know what an atheist is, someone doesn't believe in anything, especially, most especially, Christianity. Oh, no, no, no. No good, no good, no good, no good. No, no, no. They'll go with evolution. Hell, they'll even wind up in a circle with you at a pagan festival. An agnostic is a paranoid atheist. My best description for him. Anyway, so I met the love of my life and we started dating. And I would have hot spots of pagan activity and then lull down to normal. I'd have hot spots. And well, that marriage lasted 10 years. We were together for 14. We had a child. And numerous things added to that marriage falling apart. But I am in no way, shape, or form clean on that one. I was not the best husband I could be, because I did not honestly comprehend what being a biblical husband was. I didn't understand what being biblical was. So after that divorce, and things got nasty, things got real nasty, got real hard. I mean, you get to where you really think you start hating someone. Okay, so then, in fact, I even got married again just to which was not in any way sure. That was another bad mark on my side. I used one person to harm another. And honestly, actually, not because I hated the person, but because I was angry. So, needless to say, that third one didn't last very long. And I wound up losing my home, wound up being homeless, wound up on the road. You watched any of my videos, you've heard some of the stories. I was still pagan. And so I wound up in Minnesota, hanging with the Norse. Some bunch of crazy Finns. And in fact, I heard I only know one good Finnish joke, and it's a doozy. It was told to me in a bar by a pagan woman who was born of a Jewish family, whose husband was Finn. And when she told it to me, I was surrounded by a bunch of Finns, and I didn't want to die, so I tried to bite my lip, but it was funny. Anyways, let's go forward a little bit more. I've not yet finished, pissing off the good Lord. Things through my life had happened where that little bit of Southern Baptist would peek up in me, or I shouldn't even say Southern Baptist. From time to time, I would look up and I would say, Lord, if you're real, do this. One of the times was I laid there before I was going through the rough times of that marriage. I wanted to die. And I laid there and I said, Lord, Jesus, if you're real, I don't want to wake up in the morning. Well, I woke up next morning, so I just kept on going my own way. That's because he had plans for me. Anyways, so I'm in Minnesota. I wanted to get a chance to buy a farm in Kentucky, where I had worked while living in a tent. So I gathered up my scratch. I moved to Kentucky, put down the down payment on the farm. I lived on that farm for 4 years. And this is kind of where things started changing, because in Minnesota, there was a lodge. And it wasn't so much an actual building. It was a place where pagans come and gather and learn things, teach from each other. Kind of like a school. Common skills, cooking, sewing, cleaning, things people don't know how to do anymore. So I decided to start a lodge in Kentucky. Come to find out, there were pagans in this part of Kentucky, because I've since moved back to it. And I noticed the same things going on amongst these pagans is what's going on in Minnesota, was what was going on in Florida, and everywhere else in the country I've been. Witch wars and bitching back and forth and backstabbing. I mean, if you're going to be pagan, you have to have a good bulletproof vest that's knife-proof and put it on your back. Or don't go through a metal detectors, you'll set them off. And I really started getting kind of fed up with it. Well, at one point, I'm out working with a horse. I get thrown off said horse. Said horse breaks my back. I wind up with a massive concussion. I didn't realize my back was broken for several days afterwards, but I went back in the house and I laid down. I looked up at the ceiling, and knowing that I had a concussion because I had to close one eye to see anything without seeing double and blur and everything else. And while talking to a friend of mine on the phone who was screaming at me, "Do not lay down, do not go to sleep, you'll go in a coma, you'll die." And I said, well, I got no money to go, there's no hospital right here, I ain't got no insurance to go to the hospital anyway, so there it is. What's going to happen is whatever, and I said, whatever the good Lord wants to happen. So I closed my eyes, I laid down. About an hour and a half later, I woke up, opened up one eye, and I looked straight up at the ceiling of my shack. And I said, well, I guess you ain't ready for me. You ain't done with me yet. In an agitated manner. Well, I went and I healed up from that. A little time goes by, I meet another little gal, bring her in my home. And I'm sitting there, I converted this gal to paganism too. I mean, I'm converting people left and right. You know? And I'm sitting there one day on the edge of a hill, squirrel hunting. I had my flintlock laid across my lap. Just sitting there kind of waiting for the squirrels to move around, do meditate, kick back, relax. And this is where my journey starts to take a little bit of a turn. I see a feller, not actually walking out there, but a vision. Guy's dressed in long black robes. Well, Satanists dress in long black robes. Druids don't dress in long black robes. Besides, these robes got white writing all over. What the heck is this? So I finish up hunting, I go back and go ponder on it, and I kind of sketch up what I'd seen, and I remember the feller's face. He had a kind of a scraggly, long beard. Not too massive long, but long enough. About my length, not as thick, you know. So I get on the internet, start scooting around looking. And the feller I saw was the best of my description at the time was a monk, an Orthodox monk, an Orthodox Christian monk. Now, keep in mind, I'm in Kentucky, northeastern Kentucky, to be precisely. Western edge of northeastern Kentucky. There ain't nothing Orthodox around here at all. In fact, and there aren't no Catholic monks, neither there's Catholic churches, but even a Catholic monk wouldn't look like that. So I start, okay, what is Orthodox? And part of the reason why I got involved with pagans, I was looking, okay, what is the truth? The truth is going to be in the oldest. It's going to be in the foundation. It's going to be in the rock that started said belief system. And in my studies, I found out that neo-paganism is in no way, shape, or form old. No, I don't care what anyone says. Someone comes up with a piece of pottery. 6 months later, some schmuck has written up an entire tradition based off that piece of pottery and the culture of that piece of pottery and how they've been a member of that particular tradition, sect, cult, whatever, for blah, 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 and they're all multiple generations, and it's all bullshit. Plain simple. Lies. Well, who works in lies? We'll get to that here in a little bit. Anyway, so I start learning about this Orthodox Christianity. The history of the age of it, and how it really hasn't changed in 2,000 years. Huh. That's pretty interesting. Damn near 2,000 years. I started looking at the history of it. Well, one thing leads to another, and I've got to leave Kentucky. There's no work. That little gal that I had in, she had 5 heads and spit up pea soup every 3 weeks. And life was just absolutely miserable. It was one of those stuff gun in your mouth situations. So I went in. I had a piss poor job. I barely made any money. I'd drive an hour to get to, and didn't make enough. And I'm down to starting to look like my brother, which is a beanpole. So I drug up, went back to Florida. But before I drug it, I had decided before all this that I was going to leave paganism. I was going to go to this Orthodox religion. That's where I was being called or drawn to. So I left. Went back to Florida. In fact, I already knew where I was going. I left on a Friday, got to Florida, my brother's house on a Saturday, and Sunday morning I walked into St. Herman's of Alaska, in Boynton Beach, Florida. Actually, was classified Western Lake Worth, but Boynton Beach, Florida, on the corner of Lantana Road and Military Trail. I walked in, and Father Michael's sitting there. I walked in, I looked around, he says, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, this is my church." He says, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." I go, "Congratulations, you're going to be probably the first Christian priest to be able to convert a pagan in 800 years." He goes, "I don't think so." Okay. Time goes by, and I wind up becoming chrismated. I had been baptized as a child, so I didn't be baptized again, but I became chrismated. I learned about the church. I became part of the church. So I joined the culture of the church. I joined the culture of Eastern Orthodoxy. In this particular setup, it was the OCA, the Orthodox Church of America. And as time went by, I went through, became associated with ROKOR, which is a Russian church outside of Russia, Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia. So a few years go by, and I've gone to Belarus. I had met a young lady, and we'd talked about marriage and importing them to the U.S. and all that. On my way back from Belarus, I'm in Germany. I'm in the airport in Germany. And I look over, and there's the feller. Not a feller dressed in those clothing, but that same feller that I recognized as being a monk. So I went up and talked to him. Come to find out, he was not just an Orthodox monk, but he was the Coptic bishop of Egypt. That is who God sent to start bringing me. Okay? Pretty heavy. So, time goes by. And I'm into the tradition. I'm into the clothing. I'm into the candles, the nuances, the singing, being able to do stuff in Russian, learning Russian. Still really wasn't there yet. One day, after I moved back to Kentucky, I decided I want to bring Orthodoxy to this part of Kentucky. That's what I do. And I'm sitting there. I've been having a dilemma. Mixed between my new Christianity that I found, which is old Christianity, and what I was raised with, which we were all raised with, evolution. Dinosaurs. I'd say nothing about dinosaurs in the Bible. I'm interested in that stuff. And how can that be if the New Testament is history? How can is the Old Testament history? How can the Old Testament history? We got proof of evolution. What is our stuff? Which boils down to, was there a great flood? So I sat there and said, Lord, it's either A or B. If how can I believe in this if everyone, including pastors, ministers, priests, talk about Genesis as if it were, it's a poetically nice story. There are things you can learn from it, but they bought into evolution. I said, Lord, how can this be? So I picked up this iPad that I got in front of me, cranked it on to my normal morning routine of coffee and YouTube. Cranked it up, and the very first video that popped up was one of them armor-plated dinosaurs they had found. And they found it. It was complete. It wasn't a skeleton. It was the complete animal, encased in mud, because it had died. Even the scientists said this animal had died. It drowned in a massive flood. I went, Go to the next one. They're talking about dinosaurs they found that had soft tissue in them. And the scientists were, this can't be right, because soft tissue doesn't last for millions of years, thousands maybe. So the Lord showed me. I was on board for Genesis. I was on board for the Old Testament. I'm on board for the New Testament. Still don't sound like it's in my heart yet, does it? I thought it was. It really wasn't. I wasn't truly redeemed until I got a phone call one morning on a Wednesday. My sister had called to let me know that wife that I went through such an ugly divorce with, had a child with, that I confessed to have hated. That wife had passed. And I remembered a phone call I'd gotten. I hadn't spoken to her in years. A phone call I'd gotten that November beforehand. She acted as if she was calling the pizza guy at 11:30 at night. And it didn't make any sense to me. But it did then. And it was then I realized I didn't hate. By the way, even Christ told us that hatred is murder. And I realized at that point it wasn't hate that I was feeling, I was angry. I was an ass. At that point in time, that is when I needed Christ the most. And it was for quite a while. Because I found out that they had taken her body and they'd cremated it. No funeral, no nothing. As if they just threw her away. As if no one mourned her. From that point I had to go out of our schedule, go to work in Arizona. Not Arizona, Nevada. While I was working there in northern Nevada, I had a day off and I went up out in the desert. I went up onto this top of this mountain, had a cave. I went up in there and sat down. And there I had a long talk with God. It was at that point that He redeemed me. Now, let this sink in. If I could be redeemed, any of you who are pagan, any of you who are Wiccan, any of you who are Nordic heathen, even any of you who've gone with Satan, you can be redeemed. Now, I'm very familiar with the pagan traditions and stories of reincarnation, and these are all nothing more than lies. Because what is Satan? It's the master of lies. One lie won't work, he'll try another one. That one don't work, he'll try another one. He'll keep going till he eats a note. He promised me, Satan, through paganism, through all these great things. And I followed all these great things. Women, oh yeah. Well, I was what they called a lech. Not a good thing. All these things, everything that I thought was important, I've lost. Everything that was important, I threw away, not knowing. Following the, do what you will. If it harm none, do it that will. It's okay, it's good. It's not. There's God's law, and that's all that really matters. Anything other than that is a lie. Like I said, God can redeem me. I had broken every one of his commandments. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not worship false idols. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not, thou shalt honor thy mother and thy father. Thou shalt not murder. Through hatred, I had committed murder. Not just through lust, but through actual adultery. Because, hell, it has happened to me. People did me, I can do it back. I committed adultery. I was a lying, blaspheming, adulterous, murderous. And Christ redeemed me. I, the greatest of sinners. Humbling. People say, well, I'm okay. I'm good. I got God. Don't worry, I'm a Christian. I was baptized when I was a kid. Yeah, that don't work. That don't count. There's things called false conversions. If you get the Bible, if you read, this is older New Testament. Old New Testament. This is my father's. If you go through here, read what Christ said. He speaks in parables or stories. You either get it or you don't get it. He talks of fields, plowing fields, sowing seed on rock, on rocky soil, on hard soil, on good soil. For many, many years, I was rocky, hard soil. I had to turn myself into good soil. I had to work to become good soil, to really understand, to really let those seeds set in. Christ talks about fishing. Back in the day, folks back then fished with nets. They would toss nets out, they'd catch a whole bunch of fish, they'd bring them in, and they would sort out the good fish. They would keep and salt them. The bad fish would just be tossed away. Now, he is coming again. And I would judge the way things are looking, it's going to be a lot sooner than later. And he has cast his net. The good fish he will keep. He will bring with him to heaven. The bad fish will be discarded and will burn. We are the fish, my brothers and sisters. And it's up to you to determine which one of those fish you want to be. If you're wrapped up in the belief of reincarnation, know that sorry, it hurts your feelings. It's a lie. Flat out lie, period. Well, are you trying to tell me I need to join the Orthodox Church? Yes and no. If you feel drawn towards Orthodoxy, by all means, please do. If you feel drawn toward Catholics, please do. If you feel drawn towards the Lutherans, the Baptists, please do. Because that's the culture. That is not being a Christian. To be a Christian is one thing. It's to know Christ. To read. Get a Bible. In fact, I'd highly recommend you get a King James, New King James. If you say, well, which one of these translations should I get? I would just go with King James or the New King James, because the New King James doesn't have as much Middle English, not Old English. None of us can understand Old English, but Middle English. Than King James version. Okay, less these and thous. A little easier for you to read. But get to know what Christ said. Know God's Word, the Word of God. Know Genesis. Learn through it. Most important, read what Christ said. Get to know what Christ said then, and what he said then he's saying to you now. I've gone through and I've read what Christ had said, I said 2,000 years ago. And how relevant was it? He was talking to me now. It was a conversation where you got two people 5 feet apart, and one person says something, that conversation travels 5 feet. This was a conversation that traveled just under 2,000 years from Christ's lips to my ears. Read it. See what he says to you. Come to Christ. Let him redeem you. And by the way, I'm not talking to everyone else. I'm just talking to you. Well, I come out here to do some prayers and do a little bit of reading. I just figured I'd chat with you for a little bit. About a half hour's work, but apparently it was. Well, another mistake. This is the old Cornish poacher, Kentucky. And talking to you from St. Columban's Celtic Orthodox Mission. Y'all have fun. In the name of the Father, the Son, Holy Spirit.